Hopefully everybody came back satisfied from the break. Again, 10 minutes late. We have 11:30. Targeting at ending this session sharply at 1 o'clock because everybody of us needs a lunch break. We are starting now. Very welcome. We ended the previous session with a very lively discussion about social housing, and as a matter of fact, social housing is a crucial topic of our guidelines of real estate market development. The present session, session number 5, is about social housing as part of the housing market. Before I give the floor to my presentators, I like to have a short presentation about our work, about Chapter 9 of our guidelines. This Chapter 9, Principle 9, starts with the following words: social housing should be considered as an integral and complementary part of the real estate market and a means to promote economic growth, urban development, reduction in housing pressure, and informal settlements. I think this basic principle explains quite a lot what we are talking about. We are not developing these ideas from the scratch, but actually this is a reality in countries like Germany, Scandinavia, the Netherlands, or Austria. We are talking about a specific type of social housing, a specific type of social policy, and that is to be explained in short. There was one researcher, Jim Kemeny, who made an analysis about the different housing policy schemes in Europe, and he came to the result that we could distinguish housing policy schemes between dual housing markets, that is to say, housing policy schemes where social housing is for the poor, which is for low-income people, which is mostly with poor services, with the big threat of becoming ghettos, but on the other hand, very means-tested access to these dwellings. On the other hand, housing policy schemes which he called integrated or unitary housing markets like Scandinavia or Austria, where he detected big housing stocks, and I come to this a little bit later, what integrated housing markets mean. My institute, IIBW, Institute for Real Estate Construction and Housing, based in Vienna, Austria, has tried or is trying to transfer what we have learned in Austria, the Netherlands, and other Western European countries into transition economies, and that is actually what I want to contribute to REM and to this conference. What are the cornerstones of integrated housing markets? First, mostly they have big quantities. That is to say, they have a position in the markets that they influence private markets as well. Social housing markets may become a tool to influence the private markets, and particularly the price development of the private markets. They have medium price level. That is very important, that they do not provide dwellings for very low costs, but as they usually are realized by the way of cost coverage, they have rents which are only slightly below average market prices. In Austria, we are talking about 5 to 7 euro per square meter per month. Accessibility not only for the poorest, but accessibility for middle and lower income people. The lowest income people, they get additional housing allowances. The social landlords are economically strong. This is very important. They are not non-profit organizations, but they are limited profit organizations. That is to say, they should make profits, but they are limited in taking out the profits out from the cycle of social housing. Social housing in these countries try to attain above average quality of construction and maintenance. And finally, financing schemes to realize social housing construction involves in a big part capital markets and commercial banks. The example of Austria exemplifies what I am talking about. Austrian limited profit housing associations are responsible for some 20% of the housing stock, total housing stock. This is about 800,000 units. In new construction, they are predominant. They realize some 60% of multi-apartment buildings. Rents, as I have mentioned, 5 to 7 euro per square meter per month. Additional housing allowances are only at about 5%. Only 5% of people get housing allowances. We have proven in several studies that private housing markets are positively influenced by the limited profit housing sector. We have a very stable development of production and prices, so we have had no boom in prices, and we now do not have any slump in prices and production. And what is quite evident, this sector, with its very strong position on the markets, has a very clear contribution, very positive effects to overall economic development. Finally, it is very important to evaluate the public funding for this sector, and I think this is one of the really convincing aspects of the scheme. The Austrian state finances social housing with about 1.0% of GDP. This is below the average of Western European countries. My institute, as I have mentioned, tries to transfer such a scheme to countries in transition. We have identified two holes to do so. One is structured financing, that is to say, we have developed a financing scheme to go for rents that are at €2.50, €2 per square meter. And secondly, we think it is necessary to define a new business model. A new business model requires a legal framework. That is to say, it is not a bottom-up approach, but it is very clearly a top-down approach. This is a little bit small. The letters are a little bit small. When I talk about structured financing for social housing, it is not exactly what is understood with structured financing in the banking sector. It is some kind of a risk-averse way of structured financing. We have different layers of financing construction and land. That is on the first level. We need land and infrastructure from the municipalities free of charge or for low costs. We need equity of the companies and the possibilities for cross-subsidies. We need low-interest loans or grants, that is to say subsidies from the state in a volume of about 30 to 40% if it is loans and some 15% if it is grants. We have a cooperation with the Dutch International Guarantee of Housing, that is a guarantee fund from the Netherlands, who provides loans of first loss, which is very supportive in this respect. And finally, we are cooperating with the banks who provide senior loans. As there is almost no risk in these projects, these loans as well are expected to be rather cheap. The best progress by now we have attained in Montenegro. We have realized such a scheme together with a social landlord in place in Podgorica and all other cities of Montenegro. With this scheme, as I have mentioned before, we realize rents that are at about €2.50 in the richer regions and clearly below €2 in less developed areas. Additionally, we will charge maintenance costs of some 50 cents per square meter, and we are going to establish administration facilities, capacities within the structures of the social landlord. This landlord is going to realize, or has already realized, housing construction with standards that are above the average of Montenegro. And finally, this social landlord, the Montenegrin Fund for Solidarity Housing Development, is expected to grow as an economically strong institution that in the long run has big potentials for refinancing from own equity. At the same time, we are invited by the state of Montenegro to contribute to a new housing law for Montenegro, including a PPP housing law. Such a PPP housing law we have developed for Romania, and we are now adopting it for Montenegro. It follows the models of Austria and the Netherlands. Major importance: private companies fulfill services of general economic interest. With this diction, we face the state aid ban of the European Union. There is an exemption for the state aid ban for this kind of services. Such companies shall make profits, but these profits must not be taken out of the system and have to be reinvested. And there are very strict auditing and control mechanisms. In Austria, just to give an example, we had no problem with corruption and serious misbehavior of this sector for the previous more than 20 years. But there has been some problems before. In Romania, this is a little bit too optimistic. Proclamation in autumn 2009. I guess there are good chances to realize it in 2010. So this is the structure of the total new housing law for Romania. We have designed it in a way that we have one umbrella law and 5 attached thematic laws: rent law, condominium law, PPP housing law, housing management maintenance law, and housing subsidy law. So that's my introduction. Thank you very much. We start with the presentations in the succession as indicated in the program. Mr. Mularczyk will talk about facing the financial crisis. That is to say, he will talk about the approach of UN Habitat regarding housing finance, regarding social housing.